Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. You know me for quite some time. I come from Syria. I've been to war zone. My country witnessed war, destruction, extermination. We have seen things that you cannot even imagine. So I do not wish for anyone to pass through the similar experiences or less or more, regardless of your religion, your ethnicity, your skin color. I just hope that no human being passes through similar experiences. It's so traumatizing and it's so destructive for your physical health and for your psychological health, right? And my motto is what Nietzsche said: beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster, for when you gaze long into the abyss gazes also into you. Why I'm saying this? Because I'm seeing lots of commentaries from different sides, whether they're pro Palestinian or pro Israeli, they're celebrating death. There is nothing to be celebrated about when it comes to death. If you haven't been to a war zone, you don't know what war means, you don't know what destruction means, we don't know what death and killing and murder means, then you shouldn't wish such things for anyone. If you don't want to carry arms, if you can't carry arms and go and fight, then you shouldn't talk about death because you don't know what does death mean for you, right? And specifically, for example, I want to mention an example of Jordan Peterson, who is very famous and everybody knows him nowadays. On Twitter, he's calling for basically genocide of the Palestinians. His last tweet about it, like he even tagged Netanyahu as if Netanyahu is taking his military orders from him or tactics from him. He's saying like, finish them. What does finish them mean? Show them hell. What does this mean? Like the people, for example, in the Gaza Strip, do you think that these 2 million people are all, for example, Hamas? Or do you think they participated in the plan against the Israeli settlements, settlers, or the Israeli army? Do you think that when Israel bombs Gaza, they're going to just pick the Hamas? Israel has a track record of carpet bombing Gaza Strip and killing hundreds and hundreds of civilians in the discourse of this bombing. So, of course, when you call for such an act by the Israeli forces, they're going to do this indiscriminate bombing. And this is what they have done in the past for a very long time. So, it quite bothers me to see such influencers are calling for genocide, for example. Or on the other side, people are celebrating the civilian death, for example, among the Israelis. And some of you even left comments under my tweets or under my videos telling me that all Israelis, whether women or men, serve in the military. So if you're above 18, you serve in the military. So you are a potential reservist or a potential soldier. And I understand that logic, but when somebody is in her or his civilian dress, you cannot kill this person only because you think that this person maybe serves in the army. And even if it's he or she serves in the army, if this person is not carrying an arm, you cannot kill this person. And even if he is carrying an arm and surrendered, you cannot kill this person. These people should be treated as prisoners of war. And if this person is a civilian, you should treat them humanely and you shouldn't kill this person. You shouldn't harm this person. This is, in my opinion, 101 of humanity. So I condemn the Israeli occupation. I do this for a very long time, by the way. And what the Israelis have done to the Palestinians is so unjust that your brain maybe cannot imagine, guys, because you haven't lived in Palestine and you haven't talked with Palestinian people who were displaced, forcefully displaced, or lost their homes were demolished, etc., etc. You don't know what does it mean to be a Palestinian. I myself, that I lived in Syria and I was in touch with Palestinians, and when they tell these stories, you can't imagine how much injustice they have been passing through. But when I'm fighting evil, I cannot be evil, right? Like I shouldn't become a monster if I'm trying to get rid of a monster. This is my message. I don't care if you like it or not, guys. This is really important for me because my stomach was hurting me the other day when I saw the death among the civilians, whether in Gaza Strip or on the other side. I do not wish any civilian to pass through similar experiences. So, of course, I condemn the Israeli occupation, but I refuse and also condemn to become a monster, and condemn the civilian casualties if it's on purpose, and because I refuse to become a monster. So today, the defense minister of Israel says, quote, I have ordered a complete siege. I will show you what he says basically, so that you also can read with me, because yeah. I have ordered a complete siege on the Gaza Strip. There will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we act accordingly. So this is what I was telling you guys. This is some sort of a monstrous statement, and it also monstrous actions now, completely bombing the Gaza Strip into ashes. So, do you think that this will bring justice or this will bring peace? This will only generate more violence. And the experiences are in front of our eyes. 75 years of occupation of Palestine, Palestinian territories. What happened? Did they reduce the violence or they increase the violence? Occupation will not bring peace. Occupation should be over, and the settlement should be deinstalled. And the Palestinian refugees, those who are outside, they have the right to go back to their homes. Those are basic things. Palestinian state should be established. Palestinians should enjoy dignity. Those are basic things. I don't understand why it's too much to ask for a dignified livelihoods for the Palestinians, just like we have a dignified livelihoods the rest of the world. Why the Palestinians can't have that? And I'm sure that the current Israeli government are not ready to do that. In the first video that I posted about Palestine, I told you I'm quite confident that this Hamas attack was coordinated between different sides that include Iran, Hezbollah, Syria, Hamas, Jihad. It's not an attack by one organization. This is a coordinated attack. This is my opinion. But today, the Wall Street Journal, they published an article, and they say, for example, Iran helped plot attack on Iran over several weeks. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps gave the final go-ahead last Monday in Beirut. The author of this article, her name is Summer Said, or he is Summer Said. He claims this. Why I'm reading you this, guys, I will tell you just when I read it. Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas's Saturday surprise attack on Israel and gave the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut last Monday, according to senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah, another Iran-backed militant. So the author here claims that he received an information from senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah that the Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas Saturday surprise attack. Okay. Officers of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had worked with Hamas since August to devise the air, land, and sea incursions, the most significant breach of Israel's borders since 1973 Yom Kippur War, those people said. Details of the operation were refined during several meetings in Beirut attended by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officers and representatives of 4 Iran-backed militant groups, including Hamas, which holds power in Gaza, and Hezbollah, and the Shiite militant group and political faction in Lebanon, they said. Guys, this is complete bullshit. Like, if there is anything I can tell you about this information mentioned here is completely bullshit. Crap. BS. Because number one, there is no senior or junior or below junior or over senior official would speak to Wall Street Journal and its journalists. There is no way for anyone from Hamas, whether he is a junior member, probably 18, 19 years old, or a senior guy, let alone senior guy. That's impossible. I worked in Beirut for 3 years in a media channel, and I was very close to southern Beirut, and I had so many contacts among the Shia community and then other communities as well. Like, there is so much secrecy that surrounds Hezbollah, Hamas, and all these activities that nobody speaks to anyone. Those are very, very disciplined, secret groups. Like, you can meet anyone in the street that could be Hezbollah or Hamas, but they are just normal people. And these people, they never open their mouths, let alone giving information to the Wall Street Journal. This is complete bullshit. There is no way, even if the information is accurate, which was my initial analysis that this can't be just a Hamas attack, there is no way that the senior Hezbollah or Hamas officials spoke to Wall Street Journal. This is, if you tell anyone in Syria, Lebanon, or elsewhere, Palestine about this, they would laugh their asses out. And he also claims a European official and an advisor to the Syrian government, however, gave the same account of Iran's involvement in the lead up to the attack as the senior Hamas and Hezbollah members. Today, I was asking my sources in Damascus, who is this European official who is advising the Syrian government? And nobody knows, and believe me, I have so many sources in Syria, very reliable ones. Nobody even knows the existence of some European officials who advises the Syrian government, because this never doesn't exist. And despite that, this article is being circulated as a fact. But apparently, the former boss of this author of the article from Reuters, his name is Andrew McGregor Marshall. He posted this and says the main reporter on this story, Summer Saeed, has a history of dishonesty and inventing stories. I fired her from Reuters in 2008 for this reason. I'm surprised that the Wall Street Journal has hired her and is publishing her stories that are clearly bogus. So the person is a woman. I thought it's a guy. I don't know. So maybe he's posting some other person's photo in his profile account. So this is complete crap, in my opinion. Now, what are the possible scenarios in this conflict in Palestine? I think we are faced with two scenarios. The first one is escalation. And by escalation, I mean Israeli incursion, ground offensive against the Gaza Strip, carpet bombing it. Now they're carpet bombing it anyway, but the ground incursion or a ground offensive against the Gaza Strip. This, in my opinion, if the Israelis succeed or on the way to occupy the Gaza Strip, if Hezbollah sees that the Israelis will succeed in this operation, they will intervene. I am 100% sure about this. There is no doubt. And mark my words and keep this video in your archives and you will see. I know the Middle East very well, and I know how these organizations operate. They don't operate as one party, but they act as a group and as an alliance. If Israel conducts a ground offensive and there is any chance for the Israeli forces to succeed, Hezbollah will intervene. And that means the Americans will probably also intervene. And they're already sending their fleet to the Mediterranean and the aircraft carriers. So if the United States intervenes, then that means also Iran will intervene. And the American interests in the Gulf will be targeted by Iran. This is, guys, regional war. And it could expand into a World War III style war, just like what's happening now in Ukraine. But if my analysis was correct in the first video that I told you, that Iran is probably dragging the United States into war in the region because they know they are busy with the war in Ukraine, and they know that the United States is printing so much money to sustain in this war, with proxy war with Russia. So if this analysis is correct and Iran is dragging the United States into war in the region, the biggest benefactor of this will be China and Russia. Because the United States will not sustain in two wars. It's impossible. They're already out of ammunition and the production is very slow. They cannot sustain two major wars. So in the second video, I said this could be a conspiracy. I presented to you a conspiracy theory, which is probably the Israelis were watching Hamas is planning for this attack, but they allowed them so that they create a condition and an appetite for war against the Gaza Strip. But this is also it could lead to the similar outcome, which is a regional war, whether it was planned by Iran or it was allowed by Israel. In both cases, the possibility that this war could end in a regional war is very high, in my opinion. The second scenario is that all sides reach to the edge of abyss and they compromise and they strike a big grand compromise, strike big deal. But a big deal, in my opinion, will include establishment of Palestinian state, lifting the siege on the Palestinians, deinstalling all these settlements that are built on Palestinian territories, and then the peace agreements comes between different Arabic countries, Saudi Arabia, probably Syria, I don't know, Lebanon with Israel in exchange for this, but also withdrawal of the Israeli forces from the Golan Heights, withdrawal of the American forces from the region. Is this option plausible? From what I see at the moment, I don't think so. Because the Americans in Ukraine are very stubborn and they know that this will end up in the end of the unipolar world. So they're very stubborn in Ukraine. And we have another megalomaniac, psychopathic leader in Israel, and his name is Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu, please remember, guys, only this was a few weeks ago, he was in the UN and he was showing the map of Israel. And I will show you now this photo, for example. He was showing the map of Israel and he completely erased Palestine from the map. So this is the picture that he presented to the world. And as you can see, he didn't even, he considered entire region Israel. No Palestine here. So this guy, he doesn't believe in a Palestinian state. He doesn't believe in two-state solution. He believes, in my opinion, in ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, kick them all out or kill them, push them to the neighboring countries and establishing one state only for the Jewish people, and also believe in Zionism. This is my opinion. This is what Netanyahu believes. And this will also lead us to the first plausible scenario, and that is we're heading to escalation. I'm just worried about that. Now, guys, I will show you a video before because I'm sure you have seen so much now on your mainstream media outlets and everything, but surprisingly, Christiane Amanpour, she hosted from the other side of the story. But despite that, just check, guys, her body language, her statements, her questions, her phrasing. She's ridiculously horrible journalist. She's a prostitute, right? She's a mouthpiece of the establishment, of the American establishment. There is no place that the Americans have a vital interest where she's not there and not defending the United States elite's interests. Take a look.
So let's bring in Husam Zlot now. He's head of the Palestinian mission to the UK. Welcome to the program. First and foremost, do you condemn what Hamas did inside Israel to Israeli civilians? There are dead and there are hostages.
First and foremost, the Western media must really abandon this framework that has gotten us to where we are today.
Okay, but I just want to know, do you support the killing of civilians?
Of course not. Of course not. Of course not.
So do you condemn that?
The loss of civilian life is tragic in all sides. And what is happening is extremely worrying and very tragic. And as we speak, the loss of lives, you've counted 70 Israeli deaths. There is more than 200 Palestinian deaths so far, more than 1,600. Entire residential compounds are being wiped out. This is a war crime committed by Israel. What is more tragic, or equally tragic, is the blindness and the deafness of the world and the international community for so many years, of the warnings we have been saying that this was coming. Israel knew that this was coming there their way. We, the National Movement of Palestine, the PLO, have found a different path 30 years ago. We have committed to what the world asks us: recognize Israel, commit to negotiations and nonviolence, and to international legitimacy and resolution. Israel was expected to do one thing only: roll back its occupation, stop its colonial settlement expansion. Not one day it did so, killing the prospects of a two-state solution. And the world was expected to do one thing, Christian: uphold international law equally on everybody, on Ukraine, on Palestine. And the world fails to do that.
So now
no
what?
Accountability. Now, every single political avenue is blocked. Every single legal avenue for us is blocked, like the ICJ, the International Court of Justice. You've heard what the US said, or the UK said.
I want to know what happens now. What happens now? There's a war that Israel has declared after Palestinian militants, who I don't think you're friends. Hamas is not a supporter of the Palestinian Authority. There's a war. And as you say, there's going to be a massive escalation.
There is a war. You see, we're having this conversation because Israelis have seen what they have seen today. But my people see this every day. Every single day. Palestinians are targeted, killed, arrested, surrounded. Their land is confiscated. Their holy places are desecrated. Not only Muslims, but Christians. You have been following what is happening in the Al-Aqsa Mosque and in our Christian churches, the spitting on Christian worshippers. Our people have been seeing apartheid being enforced on them over the last years, and the land is being taken, and the hope for a political solution that will fulfill their rights dissipating. And therefore, this is what we need to discuss.
Fine. Yeah, I know. But I mean, as you know, neither the Israeli political spectrum nor the United States nor anybody, it's like the Palestinian issue doesn't exist anymore. The two-state solution the diplomacy is on deep freeze. Can I first ask you, though, before we get to there, what triggered this attack? It's on a certain date. It's 50 years to the date just about. Before, 50 years ago, it was October 6th, Yom Kippur. Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel. What do you think triggered this? And it was a very sophisticated Hamas attack.
I don't know. I really, really don't know. What I know is that it was a matter of when, not if. We've been shouting every day, don't leave a vacuum. Don't unheed what we are saying. Pay attention. Don't underestimate people's desire for freedom, for ending the bondage and captivity. Pay attention to the destruction that Israel is doing. Make sure that these supremacists in the Israeli government are not going to turn the whole thing upside down. Therefore, this is not about timing and all that. This is about the fact that we discuss everything except the core thing, the fundamental issue, the root causes. And we've been doing this for 75 years. One sentence. You know that 70% of the population in Gaza, the Palestinians, are refugees since the Nakba of 1948. You know that they have been under besiegement since 2007, the biggest open-air prison. This is what leads to events that you want to discuss.
So here's the thing. Obviously, the Israelis will say this is what happens when we evacuate, for instance, withdraw from Gaza, which they have done. And as you're right, it is sealed and it is a very heavily guarded situation. But what now happens? So, for instance, I was speaking to the former Israeli ambassador to the US, Michael Oren, and he said, even you, Palestinian Authority, all of you guys who are in the West Bank, you're under threat from Hamas, and that you're only, he said, Mustafa and Mahmoud Abbas are only alive because Israel keeps them alive, that you're under such threat from your own people. What would you answer to that?
Nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. And Israeli lies all the time. What our people in Gaza are subjected to are the same in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, and our refugees and diaspora. We are united by our suffering, and we are united by our goal, which is ending this occupation, ending this illegality. We have our political differences, of course, but we make no mistake that the one thing that we need to rid ourselves with is the Israeli military occupation, is the colonization, is the system of racial domination that has been imposed on us. We make no mistake of that. So this is not a Palestinian internal affair. This is the failure of every international actor to pay attention, of every international actor. You see, instead of learning the lessons, what I heard today from many international actors, including from the US and the UK, is doubling down on the very same mistakes and failure
What is the option?
that has led us to where we are.
What is the option right now? What happens? Israel doesn't respond to Hamas?
The alternative is statesmanship, is courage, the equal application of international law. We are not lesser of human beings. We are not the children of a lesser God. We are equal as all nations. It's been 75 years of oppression, of wholesale destruction. You've seen what happens in Gaza. Wait until tomorrow and see the thousands who will lose their lives and their livelihoods. Enough is enough. The only solution is respect people's legitimate birthright of self-determination, the right to return to their properties, the right to establish a state of their own, and stop dodging this. Stop finding, detours around it. There is no such a thing as detour. Peace can only be struck with us, the Palestinians, not with anyone else. Because Israel is in odds with us, because Israel has taken our land, because Israel is subjecting us and oppressing us, not anybody else. And bravery from the international community requires the equal application of international law. Israel, as an occupying power, has a full responsibility to protect the civilians under its own occupation, right? Yeah. This is international law. Israel has the full responsibility to make sure no civilian is harmed. It's been doing the opposite for 75 years. You've just shown on your own program.
Do you worry that that statement that you're making is completely compromised when Palestinian militants, terrorists, bomb Israeli civilians, kill them, capture them, hold them hostage?
No.
How do you keep the moral high ground in that case?
We keep the moral high ground by sticking to international law, by reverting to international judicial system, by seeking the ruling of the International Criminal Court. Let international judges come to Palestine, the occupied Palestinian territory, and rule, and we will accept the ruling. If we commit any mistakes or crimes, we will accept it. But everybody knows it's Israel that has been violating every provision of international law and our common human decency.
Do you see, final question, is there any mediator, the US or anybody right now, who could de-escalate this?
The US is completely disqualified. And I've been following what is coming from Washington. Washington considers Israel to be a domestic issue, not a foreign policy issue. And Washington is playing political footballing with this. And regrettably, we have been at the receiving end. The solution is the world, the international community. The US should be on the table, but so is Europe, so is the rest of the world, so is China. The world must come together to end this conflict, as it did with all other conflicts. We are not an exception.
Husam Zlot, Palestinian, the head of the Palestinian mission here. Thank you for that perspective. So let's bring in.
This is what you call BAM. If you know anything about journalism and how arrogant is Christiane Amanpour and what she thinks she is, like she has this moral high ground, she has to teach and lecture people, right? Did you see her attitude at the beginning? Like she started with the aggressive attitude, and then she started like a balloon. And then she became smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller because Husam, the head of the Palestinian mission in the UK, he owned her with logic, with arguments, with facts, with international law. She can't say anything against that. She's calling the siege of Gaza, which has been over 15 years, sieging 2 million people there, completely choking them, heavily guarded area. And Husam was very correct. The United States has lost its ability to be a neutral player in this. The United States considers Israel an internal affairs. So how it comes that they can be mediator? No, there should be other parties in this involved. For example, China, Russia, other countries who are neutral. I mean, Europe, forget about them, right? The European countries are, the EU, Germany, everybody is now like, we are so in solidarity with Israel. Okay, I understand. I respect your opinion. But how about you also show some solidarity with us? Because you're saying that you're humanitarian. You're saying that you have a moral high ground. You're lecturing us about humanity, human rights, etc. So how about our human rights? Why don't you respect our human rights? And finally, guys, speaking of Israel and its pretending that Israel has this, the boogeyman of Israel are the Islamists. You know, this is what the Israelis try to sell to the world. This is completely untrue. I mean, only recently in Syria, Israel was on the same bed, in the same bed with Al Qaeda. And people think this is a conspiracy theory, and it's not. I will show you this video of the ex head of chief of Mossad. This was on Al Jazeera just a few years ago, I think in 2018. And Mehdi Hassan, which I dislike him, but he was doing some good job. And I said, Israel conducted hundreds of airstrikes against Syria in the past decade, including on Damascus and Aleppo international airports. Israeli officials confessed that they have supported Al-Qaeda terrorists against the Syrian army. Where was your outrage back then? And this tweet got very viral, guys. If you like to also share it, you can find it on my Twitter account. So check what he says about Israel helping the Al-Qaeda fighters.
There have been reports that Israel's been treating wounded Syrian rebel fighters in its hospitals on the
yes,
border,
yes.
including fighters from Nusra Front,
Yeah.
which is, of course, the al-Qaeda proxy in Syria. Do those reports worry you that Israel's helping wounded al-Qaeda-aligned fighters?
As I said before, in a different context, it's always useful also to deal with your enemies in a humane way. And I think that when you have people who are wounded and you can deal with them in a humane way, the considerations as to whether to take them in are not simply whether it's politically useful or whether it's politically
So it's purely
contributory.
humanitarian, you say. So there's no tactical or political strategic...
I didn't say there's no tactical. I said the main consideration, the immediate consideration is humane.
But the tactical issues involved, I mean, you know better than me the phrase blowback. You don't think there's going to be blowback against Israel if you get into bed with a group like Nusra Front?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be blowback.
Why?
Because I think that unfortunately the rules of the game in Syria are such that you can do anything that is not possible to be done anywhere else.
Yeah, I think people said that in Afghanistan too. Would you also treat Hezbollah fighters?
No, I would not treat.
Have you not just contradicted what you told me 60
I've not
seconds ago
contradicted, no,
about humanely
no,
treating your
no,
enemies?
No. I think as far as Hezbollah fighters are concerned, with them we have a different account.
So let me be clear. You're
have a
happy to
different-
treat Al-Qaeda fighters, but not Hezbollah fighters?
We have a different account with Hezbollah, a totally different account, because Hezbollah has carried out the type of actions against us which preclude us from going into what the Al-Qaeda has done. Al-Qaeda, to the best of my recollection, has up to now not attacked Israel.
It has attacked your number one ally and protector and sponsor, the United States of America. There is a quote-unquote war on terror being going on for 15 years.
First of all, when it comes to fighting Al-Qaeda in intelligence and in other areas, yes, we are together with the United States on all these things.
Okay.
But Israel was not specifically targeted by Al-Qaeda, and therefore it's a different kind of account than we have with Hezbollah.
I wonder why Israel was not attacked at all by Al-Qaeda before, and why he was so confident that Al-Qaeda will not attack Israel, although Al-Qaeda occupied the borders with between the occupied Golan Heights and Syria, which means like it's occupied by Israel. And this is the thread I made, guys. If you want, you can go and see it all with all the sources that I put. This is not from Russian propaganda channels, quote unquote. Those are from the mainstream media. Israel has been regularly supplying quote Syrian rebels, aka Islamist insurgents, including the Nusra Front, near its borders with cash as well as food, fuel, and medical supplies for years. This is from the Wall Street Journal from 2017. And those are a photo from the Israeli-Syrian border along the occupied Golan Heights, shows Israeli soldiers conversing with Al-Qaeda fighters in 2015. As you can see, they're just having nice chat together. And those are the beautiful freedom fighters, according to the mainstream media. In August 2014, Al-Qaeda terrorists occupied the border crossing between the Golan Heights, which is occupied by Israel, and Syria, and they operated freely, receiving aid from Tel Aviv against Damascus. In short, it's not only Israel, but also the United States supported Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. In 2012, Jack Sullivan sent an email to Hillary Clinton, later leaked by WikiLeaks, saying Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. You can find all the links, guys, in this thread. And finally, the U.S. envoy to Syria, James Jeffrey, said in 2021 that Al-Qaeda, which still occupies Idlib, was an asset to the American strategy in Syria. You can, again, this is from the PBS. You can find the source here. The purpose of this thread is to show you that Israel and US aren't necessarily against the Islamists all the time. For example, between 2012 and 2018, when Hamas turned against Damascus and some of their fighters even fought against the Syrian army, Washington and Tel Aviv were happy. And finally, as usual, some people do not read what I write. If they do, they need help understanding it or they misinterpret it on purpose. The Israeli crimes do not justify counter crimes by Hamas. I categorically reject and condemn targeting and killing civilians. Civilians must not be harmed, and Israeli soldiers should also be treated as pawns when they lay down their arms. If you disagree with the above statement, we are not on the same side. So, after this video, guys, and after this explanation, introduction, and conclusion that I did in this video, I would like to say that Jordan Peterson is horribly wrong. He's calling for a genocide against the Palestinians, against the indigenous people there, and those who were also being kicked out of their homes in 1945 after the Nakba. They have become refugees, and there are 1 million kids living in the Gaza Strip. So I think in this regard, it's quite clear that who is more humane and who is not, and who is just short-sighted and full of hatred. Unfortunately, saying that Jordan Peterson himself, like I'm a person that I listen to his lectures, podcasts when it comes to his advices for men about masculinity, about relationships, and all this stuff. Like I follow him, I find some of his teachings are beneficial for me as a person on an individual level. But when it comes to politics, this guy lost his mind. He's calling for genocide on Twitter, on social media platforms, and he should be addressed accordingly and bashed accordingly, because it's very shameful for someone who has millions of followers all around the world. He's using this power to go on social media and call for death and call for destruction. Jordan Peterson, you're not a fighter. You cannot even carry an arm. I mean, it's quite obvious. And secondly, I'm sure you do not wish to live in the Gaza Strip, even if this area was all your people from the same mindset, from the same ideology or whatever. But if this place was besieged, you do not like to live there. And if you were younger, you probably would have done the same, try to liberate yourself from this open air prison, right? So, because you think Hamas is a monster, and from your point of view, or Palestinians probably all monsters in your eyes, if that is correct, and I'm saying if, you have become also a monster. So you fall in this trap, in my opinion. And that is why the title of this video, Peterson's name is mentioned, so that also, the algorithm of YouTube also attracts when you put the name of someone very famous, so that also more people can watch and see what's happening in Palestine and in these hostilities between the Hamas jihad and the Israeli side, and where could this conflict lead. And I'm sure no sane person or normal person here in his head would like for World War III or regional war to be erupted there. I've been your host, Almassian of Syriana Analysis. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. If you like to support my independent work, the link here is on the screen. You can become a patron. That's a great help for me, guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the patrons who are helping me and supporting this channel, because without you, I cannot be an independent journalist and bring to you my opinion without anybody telling me what I should believe or to sell my soul. This is why I do independent work, because nobody can tell me what to do, but I cannot do that without your support. So thank you so much, and see you soon.